Hello and welcome to IC Controls. Today we're demonstrating how a Model 607 ball valve retractable sensor can be disassembled and assembled, and in particular we're focusing on the replacement cartridge aspect of it, which makes it an attractive feature. So typically it can be in a ball valve situation where it's installed into a tank or a pipe. So this is an isolation ball valve to isolate it from the pressure so the sensor can be removed safely. So for the purposes of this video, we've removed the O-rings in here that would normally seal it, just to make it a little easier to visualize and show or demonstrate. So we're going to pull the sensor back out into the safe position. It hits a stop. It won't go any further. There's a flared tip on the end, which we'll show you later. We close off the ball valve to the process or the tank, and then we are ready to remove the sensor and start the disassembly. So first we have to unthread this fitting from the ball valve assembly. And as you can see, the sensor is now removed. The next thing we want to do is start the disassembly. All we have to do is unthread this. There's a coupling in the middle that joins what we call the retainer at this end and the sensor at this end. Now I'll finish removing the retainer end, and of course one of the challenges is working with the cabling, which can make things a bit awkward. Oh, before I go too far, it makes it easier if we unthread the coupling from the retainer, and we'll focus on that a little later. And we'll take these wires and we'll fold them backwards so that they don't interfere with the BNC or the BNC boot. Well, first we'll get the BNC boot going through there, then the BNC, and then it all slides through nicely. Now we'll focus on the coupling. Same procedure. Let's get those temperature compensator leads. Through. A little bit of a challenge here. So we have the boot. The boot is an interference fit. However, it's quite flexible. We have a little way, technique how we fold the boot up and push it through, and then the BNC can follow afterwards quite easily. One of the other ways of doing this is to fold it up and then take some black electrical tape to hold it like that. It makes it a little bit easier so you don't have to hold it with your fingers. Then we want to remove the sensor from the sheath. Just going to thread this back together, and if you have an assistant, they can give you a hand getting the cabling through, because of course keeping your BNC clean is important. I'm just going to put this in a vise. Another thing an assistant can come in handy for, but if you haven't got an assistant handy, a vise is handy. We want to have the sensor held so that the cable doesn't pull on it as we're trying to remove and disassemble items. That's the disassembly. I guess one of the other things that would be beneficial to show you, in case you're ordering your sensor with a variable pin connector, we want to just demonstrate how it can pass right through the coupling, and there's no interference to be concerned about. Now with this new sensor in place in the vise, or with being held with an assistant, we want to reverse the process of assembly. So first we'll focus on the sheath. We got that in place. Then we want to look at our coupling. And again, bending basically the BNC boot in half. The BNC boot, the purpose behind it is to help isolate the BNC itself in case it was in a junction box where it could come in contact and short things out, cause some sort of a error in your sensor readings. This helps minimize that sort of thing. Now we'll work with the sheath, or pardon me, the retainer. Feed that through. Now, under normal operations, we would have the O-rings installed. There's 2 O-rings, so there's a double seal, helps center things, as well as very recommended to put a lubricant. We use a Teflon fluorinated based lubricant when we're assembling these things in the factory. Put that on the O-ring and just smearing it on generously, both inside the sheath and the O-ring. Once that's all done, I'm going to thread your coupling on to the retainer end first. Just tighten it up hand tight, that's good. And then we can push that in. Now the O-rings would typically engage there. Everything's beveled so that it aids in the O-rings coming in to the sheath. And then lastly, we're going to remove the sensor from the vise. Same sort of thing. And push that inside the sheath. Now you can see it's pushing on each end. This end's bulging back and forth. And now we'll thread the retainer with the coupling into the back of the sensor. It's all pulling together, and you hand snug it, and she's ready to go. And lastly, we've got the gland fitting on the sensor. We thread that back into the ball valve. Now we, of course, tighten that up nice and tight in a real life application. Make sure that our threads are engaged there as well. And then finally, opening it back up to the process and inserting it in. Hope that was helpful. Thank you.